Okay, we faced a outstanding Oklahoma team and did not do the things necessary to give ourselves a chance to compete the way that we wanted to in that game. Some things that we talked about that we certainly could not do was have turnovers. We did have one turnover. Kevin Dove had a fumble on a 3rd and short situation, and then we didn't run the ball as efficiently as we wanted to. We did at times. I thought Walter Dawn had some outstanding runs in that game, but there was other times I really felt we left yards on the field where the back could have put his foot in the ground and got north and south. We got to get better at that moving on. Our goal is always 4.5 per rush. We're only at 3.5 against a very stout front. We talked about catching the catchables. We had 3 drops in that game that all led to game drive-ending series, so 2 of them on 3rd down. So can't allow that to happen. And then the thing that I was probably most disappointed from an offensive standpoint, we had some pre-snap penalties and assignment errors. We had 2 formation penalties where the linemen weren't set when we were putting things in motion. We got to be cleaner with that. We did have a holding call on a short yardage where the ball bounced. Probably put that more on the back than the young man that was holding. And then we did have one clock issue, which in the first game you would expect to have a couple of those things, but against a team like that you can't afford to be in 1st and 15. Some positives, offensively, again, the play of Walter Dawn. I really thought Ryan Metz was efficient. I didn't think he had a lot of help around him as far as drops and those type things, but I thought the protection was clean. Really only gave up 1 sack, and that was more the left tackle got chipped by the back. It wasn't necessarily him getting beat. So I thought there were some positives up front moving forward. Defensively, they dominated us. They were 7 for 7 in the red zone. We really had a difficulty containing and covering their tight end. That guy's a future first-round draft pick. He's one of the best I've seen at the collegiate level. And their quarterback's outstanding, and it showed in that game. He's a guy that buys time with his legs. He's very patient, very poised, and he had some outstanding deep ball throws as well. But we didn't do a great job stopping the run. They were 4.7 per clip. I mentioned the quarterback's efficiency, and really the only time that he's been inefficient is if we got a lot of pressure on him. We only had 1 sack and 2 quarterback hits, not enough on that guy. A big negative that came out of this game that will carry into the next game, Alvin Jones was ejected in the second half for a targeting foul. Anytime you go up near the head area, you're putting it in the fate of the referee's hands. So unfortunately for us, we not only lost him for the remainder of the game, we also lose him for the first half of the Rice game, which will be an opportunity for somebody like Jamar Smith or Trayvon Hughes to step up and pick up that flag for the first half. We did not force any turnovers, and as I mentioned, we lost 1, so we're at -1 for the year. Probably the most disappointing thing was we had a lot of missed tackles on defense, guys that were usually surefire tacklers. Again, a lot of that had to do with Oklahoma and their talent, but a lot of that had to do with not pulling the trigger on certain plays, which we got to get better moving forward. I thought special teams was a positive. I think Luna was outstanding. He had a 44-yard average. The coverage was outstanding. He had a 38.2 net. He got 3 inside the 20 and really should have been 4. We should have down 1 at the 1. Michael Lewis stumbled on that and would have been easily down at the 1 on that. So Luna had a great day. He was the special teams player of the week and received the Top Gun award. Punt return, we only had the 1 return that Terry Janelle Fair caught, so nothing there. Kickoff cover, I thought the coverage was good. We had 1 touchback. You saw Viles' strength of his leg on that. And then we did have 1 return that they took from inside the end zone, and they only returned at 23 yards. So the coverage was good there. Kickoff return, I thought there was great communication as far as when to return it and hold it back. We had 2 returns for 45 yards and along at 23 with Keenan Foster, and I think that tandem with him and Warren Reddix will be good for the future. And we had no field goal opportunities in that game. But again, you look back on it, time of possession was not in our favor. The turnover battle was not in our favor. They did an outstanding job on 3rd downs, 57%, where we are at 33%. If I had to look at one positive, most of the players in our program did get an opportunity to compete and play in that game and gave us a chance to really evaluate a lot of the younger guys that have not been in the arena moving forward. Moving forward this week to Rice, they're sitting in the same boat as us. They had a game the week before. They actually had this last week as a bye week. They lost to Stanford down in Australia, a very powerful Stanford team, 62-7. This is a team that got after us last year towards the end of the year. Same type of situations. Didn't do a good job against Stanford in time of possession or third downs. But this team has a lot of returning talent. Their quarterback is new. He's a redshirt freshman. I feel they've upgraded there from an athletic standpoint. You're seeing these guys run a little bit more option with him. He's got a pretty nice deep ball, and they've got some targets he can throw it to. But this kid was an all-state quarterback in high school. He was a 3,000-yard passer. Against Stanford, he was 7 of 18 for 69 yards. He was sacked 2 times versus Stanford. Both running backs are back, and they're both compact guys, built about the same. Number 45, Sam Stewart, he had 500 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. Against Stanford, he had 82 yards and a 4.7 average. And he can also catch the ball out of the backfield. He had 3 catches for 41 yards. And this Walter kid, about the same size, 5'8", 210, he had 345 yards last year and 5 touchdowns. He had 3 carries for 45 yards. So they're kind of working those two in the rotation. Very similar backs, hard-charging backs, difficult to tackle. Much like the last team that we played, Rice has all the returning starters coming back on their offensive line. We felt they were a solid offensive line last year that got after us in the trenches, and probably the best returning one is an all-conference player. His name is Trey Martin. He's their center. He sets the front, makes all the calls. He's very athletic and capable. Rice always seems to have a taller receiver. Each year they always have a guy that's 6'4", 6'5", that they throw some fade balls to. Collectively as a group, they've got 4 receivers over 6'3", okay? And big outside receivers, in particular number 18, he's a guy that had 5 receptions against us last year in 2016. Defensively, it's kind of unique. It doesn't list that they have a lot of returning starters coming back, but they had a lot of guys that were injured and out for the year last year. They gained quite a few guys that played in 2015 back from injuries. So they have 15 players that have starting experience on their defensive side of the ball. Their best player on defense, and probably the best player in their team, who was their team MVP last year, is Ellerby, a linebacker that seems like this guy's been there for 5 years now. He's an all-conference player. He led Conference USA in tackles last year. His kid's got a motor, and it showed against Stanford. He had 10 tackles, a tackle for loss, and a quarterback hit versus Stanford to start off his season well. Another guy we have a lot of respect for is number 44. Again, this is a team that transitions from a 4-down look to a 3-down look, and they're showing more odd pressures this year. He's the guy that they can line up as a defensive end. He's also the guy that they can line up as an outside linebacker, much like Oklahoma did last week with 31. And he's got good size, 6'2", 250. He's got a high motor. He had 3 tackles, tackle for loss, and a sack versus Stanford last week. He had some good get-off on their tackles. He's a guy that we're going to have to handle. Another guy that we have a lot of respect for is their defensive lineman, number 90, 6'5", 250. He had 41 tackles and 5 sacks last year. A very high motor guy, plays hard on every snap. And they gained back a hard-hitting safety, number 17, Ibe. He's a physical hitter. He had 5 tackles in the opener against Stanford. So new scheme, new coordinator. Again, probably from a schematic standpoint, very similar to what we saw in Oklahoma. A lot of odd pressures, some 4-down looks as well, and we're going to have to be dialed in on that. Special teams, their punter is also their kicker. His name is Fox. He averaged 40.7, and against Stanford he had a long of 62, so he's got a capable leg. He had 1 touchback and 1 out-of-bounds kick on kickoffs. And he had 25 touchbacks in 2016, so another strong leg kicker that we'll see. The punt returner, Ellerby, number 25, I would imagine he's related to the linebacker. He had 1 return for 12 yards on punt return, and then he had a 29 return against Stanford. So they have a capable returner. These guys always play hard on special teams. Rice is always a well-coached team. I think David Bailiff gets the most out of his players year in, year out, and it's going to be a battle. We're going to need the fans here for our home opener. Our players are going to be excited about playing in the Sun Bowl in front of the home folk fans, and I hope everybody turns out to support our team. Anybody got any questions?
Defensively, obviously, the production was where you wanted to do. You played a lot of guys. Is there going to be some point where you're looking for 20 to 25 guys, or you want to continue that good defensive rotation with the recruiting that you've been able to do and then stack up your linebacker depth and continue the front seven as well?
Yeah, you'll see some guys out there more. Getting more reps, you'll see some guys' reps diminish because of performance. Usually, your first jump from your first game to your second game is the most drastic when you change personnel. We'll gain back hopefully Van Hook as well. It'll give us a little bit more depth there at the linebacker spot. Did feel good about what Trayvon Hughes did when he went in there and Jamar Smith, so gives me a little more confidence that we go through a first half without Alvin Jones, that we can have somebody step up in there. Defensive line, some guys that really took a step forward in this game were the young guys. Trace Mascoro played against an all-conference center and really did an outstanding job. And then Dedrick Simpson was really active and in on a lot of plays, and those guys really stood out. I thought our corners held up well against them. The deep ball issues that we had were more from the safety position, but our cornerbacks looked like they belonged out there.
Coach, continue talking about defense with regards to the pass rush. Is there any positive things that you could see from this effort, despite not really getting the pressure that you wanted, playing against the caliber of offensive line?
Well, we didn't generate a lot of pressure. We only got 2 quarterback hits and the 1 sack that we mentioned. We probably missed another sack, so potentially 2. But we got to generate more pressure than that. Is that an outstanding offensive line? I'll tell you, probably the left tackle will be a first-round pick. The right tackle is going to be a high pick, and the center is going to be a pick. And that's not even talking about the guards. So you got potentially 5 guys off that offensive line that are going to be playing on Sunday. So that's the best offensive line that we'll see in 2017.
How are you going to rotate the kickers, right?
Rotate our kickers? We're not. Viles is our field goal kicker and also our kickoff guy, and Loon is our punter. Philly backs up both positions.
You mentioned Rice's defensive transition to 3-4. How different? Obviously, it's going to be totally different. How do you prepare for that this week? What you've known as Rice defense in the past couple years?
Well, when you look at last year's film, you kind of just evaluate personnel. And really, you only have 1 game to go by this year, and it was a mixture of 4 down and 3 down. So we'll prepare for that again. But we saw a lot of that against Oklahoma. We see a lot of it from our own defense in training camp. So we have had a lot of preparation versus the odd front. We have had preparation versus the over and under fronts as well. And their personnel is good. So, that's going to be the main challenge, us matching up versus their personnel. But I really feel this game is going to be one up front on both sides of the ball, offense and defensive line. We're going to challenge both of our groups in this game. They're going to have to get the job done for us to have a chance to win in this game.
Going through my head, it might be the earliest conference game that you've had since you've been here. You turn up that intensity that Florida played before. I can't think of the word before, but just, the urgency that's the basic.
Yeah. Well, urgency is a good word, and intensity is a good word, because anytime you get in conference play, it's for real. And to have a conference game, your second game, it is the earliest I've ever had a conference game as a player, as a coach. So it gets your focus early, knowing that you could be 1-0 in conference, you could be 0-1 in conference right after week 2. So it does get your attention. Rice is a team, again, that got after us last year. We have to get after them this year to have a chance to win this game. The fact that we're playing it in front of our home folks, we're going to need their support as well. And our players love playing in front of the minor fans. It's going to be an exciting game.
Do you like playing this early in conference game, especially after going off the loss?
One way or the other. However it shakes out, Brent, your schedule's dealt out, and it ain't like we knew it last week. We've had all off-season to prepare for it. So we knew we were going to have an early conference game, but usually you get a couple under your belt before you play conference games, but it really doesn't matter to me.
Ryan obviously didn't get help, but it seemed like his decision-making, his reads were very mature from what we've seen him grow. Does that give you confidence to kind of, I don't want to say unleash him, but being able to certain situations where you can kind of let him go and make plays, where you would usually use the run game?
Yeah, he did a good job getting us in the right audibles when the box was outnumbered, and threw some hitches and those type things, and threw them successfully. And 2 of those completions were taken back from penalties. 3 of his completions were taken back from drops, and he still had an efficient game. So I was pleased with Ryan's play. In fact, I was pleased with all 3 quarterbacks. Greenlee came in, and Torres got some work as well, and they both completed balls. So what I said at the beginning of camp, I'm very comfortable with all 3 quarterbacks. I think we could win with all 3 quarterbacks, and Ryan didn't show anything that made me think differently in that game.
First drive of the game, offensive line really got after it. Now going back to the quote-unquote even playing field with a team like Rice back in conference play, is that something you can expect with the offensive line being able to create holes, create 4 or 5 a carry, and have a guy like Ron pop up like that?
Yeah, and they did do an outstanding job early, and even at the end of the game, there were some holes there, and that's probably where I was a little bit frustrated. There were some balls that bounced, probably that could have stuck in there just like they did early in the game, and that's what happens when you got young backs. They need to see this on film and see, oh, I just need to stick my foot in the ground and get the yardage that I can. You saw Walter Dawn bounce a short yardage play, which is a no-no, and he ended up losing yards, and we ended up getting a holding call on that. You just got to stick it in there in those circumstances. The one positive, in short yardage, I think Kevin Dove is an outstanding short yardage back. Here's a guy that he can get hit at the line of scrimmage and still create a pile because of his strength, and moving forward, that's probably the guy that you'll see.
Could you tell us about the scoring drive y'all had and how, it looked so positive, the running back goes in untouched,
Yeah.
19 yards out. It looked like there that, it was going to be the beginning of something good.
Yeah, but we didn't capitalize on that, and but it was an outstanding drive. It was efficient. Ryan was efficient, completed 2 third downs on that. Warren Reddix made a good play to keep that drive going. Walter made 2 outstanding runs, and Walter has the ability to do that. He's a fiery player. He's a tough player. When he hits the seams, and just keep in mind, he's been at running back for 1 game. You know what I mean, and had some outstanding runs. He'll get better and better as he sees these things on film and can correct his errors.
Any injuries from Saturday?
Just a couple banged up guys, shoulder injuries. I don't think, again, anything that'll keep them out of this game. So I think we came out of it relatively healthy. If you told me before the game we'd have the injuries that we had, I would have taken it. We didn't have any devastating injuries. The main thing is losing Alvin for the first half. Good thing is we don't lose him for the whole game. He'll be frothing at the mouth at halftime to come out and try to make up for his time. So somebody's going to have to step up and pick up the flag. Jamar Smith and Trayvon Hughes are going to have to do the job inside. Yeah, we're gonna ease him into the process this week and do some contact drills with him and see where he holds up. But that would be an added bonus for us because this kid can really fly. And they run a lot of options, so it'll be a big benefit having an edge guy that can run like he does.
The mindset of the team in the locker room after this week one, can you talk to us about that?
I think they're excited and ready to go. I think they were embarrassed by their play. I think if you go into a locker room and they're happy after a game like that, then you got major issues. They were down and they were upset, and they were upset at the way that they played, the players, the coaches, everybody. So I think this is a team that's very unified. I think this is a team you'll see bounce back. There's going to be ups and downs throughout the year. We started off with a tough game. We didn't match up against that team, and we didn't help ourselves with some of the production and play that we had in that game to help ourselves. So we're at where we're at right now. We're 0-1. We're playing a conference team that's coming in here to our place in the Sun Bowl. Our kids will be energized. They'll be ready to go.
Well, I guess Rice has kind of had some disruptions the last 2 weeks. Is that something that's going to be a problem for them?
I don't know if it's going to be a problem for them. It can go one or two ways. You can also rally around that and use that as fuel. I would imagine that's what they're doing, is trying to rally around that. We've got players on our own team that, have issues in Houston. We got one kid that's got horses back there that lost every single horse on their horse farm, you know what I mean, and Kevin Dove, so we got players dealing with that as well. I know they do. Our thoughts go out to David Bailiff and his team. I can't imagine some of the things that they're going through, but they're coming here to play a football game. We're here to play a football game, and then after the game, certainly him and I will get together and talk as we're good friends. But any way that we can help them out, whether they come here and practice those type things, we have no problem with that because it's all about that.
College football is so competitive now. You mentioned the relationship you have with David Bailiff. How does that kind of help you guys being able to get to something like that, or help him get to something?
Well, you just talk and you go off each other's experience. David went through a year. The same year that we did, we had a ton of injuries. He went through the same thing, and you just talk about, well, is there a different way we can practice? Is there a different way that we can handle this situation? And you rely on each other. And ultimately, it is competitive, but there are friendships, and there are guys that, you have respect for, and certainly David Bailiff's one of those. Anybody else? All right, thanks, guys.